Okay, so welcome to Good Case. Uh, hello. Yes.
Hello, can you?
Yeah, I hope all of you can hear me.
Yeah.
Dear all, and we are. Can I request everybody
Yes.
to mute?
Pretty clear.
Can you mute
Yeah.
so that echo and sound will not?
Annabelle ma'am, please log in from one device, ma'am.
Yes, I think.
Him to mute centrally, but can you just mute also, please? I will ask him to mute centrally.
Okay.
So
So we'll
go.
we are just not defining clinical laboratory here, but we are defining what we see. Who are we? We are the organization that analyzes samples generated by a clinical trial. Includes patient samples, blood samples, tissue samples, whatever. It's a routine safety screening of volunteers' blood samples for hematology or biochemistry, for PK studies, or even the process for the analysis of ECG traces. May include pharmaceutical company laboratories, contract research organization, central laboratories, pharmacogenetic laboratories, clinics, investigator sites, and specialized analytical services. So this is the scope of GCLP. GCLP is for all laboratories for diagnosis, patient care, disease control, and research, such as lab, hematology and blood banking, molecular biology and molecular pathology, clinical pathology, immunology, for example, immunohematology and immunobiochemistry, also includes histopathology and pathology and cytology labs. So, how does the picture of clinical labs in India happens to be? The laboratory services are integrated in the system. Of course, that means primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. Of course, there are in PSM we have different stream of healthcare services, but we are not bothered with that. Our concern is about primary and secondary, tertiary levels. There are reference laboratories. There are specific reference laboratories to provide service for complex patients. Like, for example, we will have COVID. GCLP is a set of guidelines that promote the quality and validity of test data in a clinic or microbiology or any clinical laboratory. The good clinical laboratory practices, GCLP, responsibility in the clinical laboratory. So be it the top management or be a study personnel, everybody is responsible, including sponsor. So it is a standard that protects sites, safety and well-being of trial subjects. So this comes directly from the. So this is not an official definition of GCLP, but this is what is in safety, rights and well-being of trial subjects are need to be protected under GCLP. So this is stipulated in GCLP's ethics for designing, conduct, recording and reporting of trials that involve participation of human subjects. Also, GCLP is a standard to promote quality and validity of test. This comes directly from the GLP. And GLP and GCP are both inherently built into GCLP. So, as per GLP, we have plan, perform, monitor, and recorded and reported and archived as well. GCP and GLP connection. The compliance with GCP standard provides public the assurance about the rights and safety of well-being of trial subjects are protected. Hence, we have to comply, which is built as GCLP. We work under control environment. The reference within ICH GCP is the standard requires for analysis of sample. The systems with assure the quality of every aspect of trial should be implemented. That's why GCLP came into existence. And in section on essential documents, that is accreditation of laboratories which carry out analysis for the samples and reporting of samples data generated during testing should be accredited. GLP is intended to promote quality and validity. It national process and the conditions under which a laboratory studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, and reported, and also applies those principles under GLP for data generation using regulatory submission of samples from a clinic. It ensures that the objectives of GCP principles reliability and integrity of data generated by analytical laboratories at the of the subjects. Some organizations and countries operate professions testing schemes. So while these ensure the integrity of analytical process, they may not assure compliance with GCP. So this is a elaborate at later point, but GCLP does provide. So see, this part is definitely lacking in GCP for the clinical. This aspect is covered by GCLP. This provides a unified framework for sample analysis to lend credibility and facilitate the acceptance of clinical data by regulatory authorities from around the world and across the different sites, different countries. The data becomes normalized in a way for clinical trial data. GCLP will be applied across a diverse set of disciplines involved in the analysis of samples from clinical, be it immunohematology, be it blood chemistry, or be it even be it a radiological investigation or ECG investigation. All this will fall under purview of GCLP. So framework should be interpreted and applied to the work for those organizations can be accepted and implemented. So to fulfill the objectives of assuring the quality of every aspect of the GCLP must be implemented. GCLP medical researchers generate the quality data, issue of reporting quality test results for day-to-day patient care. So this is GCLP, international GCP, which is adopted by WHO. Does not apply to the normal patient care, but ICMR has constituted, and ICMR and Indian government had different thoughts. Committee, which advised that this standard should be applicable to private laboratories involved as well. However, this standard is not mandatory as of now. It is voluntary, but it is definitely mandatory for research catering to the research services like clinical trials and other studies where it is important to submit agencies. So surveillance and control of disease as an important function of public health system. So conceptual framework of IDSP was considered in 2004, and the key components of IDSP are coordination and decentralization of activities. So improvement of laboratory support and strengthening of data quality, inclusion of private laboratories to act as a and improve community participation. So these were relevant components of IDSP from clinical lab perspective. Accreditation of service quality, including the protocols for quality assurance and certification, was a felt need by ICMR. It is voluntary for the now from ICMR perspective, but NABL offers this accreditation services to medical laboratories in 1990 following IS 15189 2007 standards. So ICMR for GCLP aim to get stepwise procedures which should be followed by laboratories to strengthen the quality of test results. These guidelines should be adopted by all ICMR laboratories engaged in research as well as patient care, but others have choice. Repeating this slide, but I will not say that. This is just redefining the scope of GCLP. Okay. Why GCLP compliance? The lab results, research or diagnostic are reliable, reproducible, auditable, and the incidence of false negatives and false positives is reduced. The results are assured to be of highest quality, comparable to those in any other location, be it USA, Europe, Australia, or otherwise. It's a business, and science is a science of complying to GCLP brings in studies that brings in money to run the organization very efficiently. So economy, of course, because if we comply to the GCLP, resources are efficiently managed and there is no wastage of any of this. There is a rationalization of expenditure. Thereby, we save money. Of course, scientifically, there is a uniformity and standardization of system. Acceptable data, which is generated by following GCLP. The objectives GCLP ensure consistent, reproducible, auditable, and reliable for laboratory results. So if test is repeated again multiple times, we get acceptably variable data with as much as accuracy and precision possible. Whosoever comes for inspection, the data is available for review and verify. The tests have been done as in a reliable manner as per SOPs and the test procedures, and thus the data becomes mutually acceptable across the different laboratories and different regions. This ensures it has, I mean, this is all what quality integrity means. So accurate reconstruction of experiments can be performed. I mean, if sample outcome, and we need to really investigate why this has happened and why this is out of scope or not an acceptable result, or there is too much similarity between. All this can be investigated easily and by because accurate reconstruction is possible because of proper documentation and audit trails have. So monitoring of data quality allows comparison of test results regardless of performance location. So this is again the part of mutually acceptable, and thereby making a final outcome. See, based on this data, probably safety outcomes are going to be defined. Efficacy outcomes are going to be defined for a particular intervention, and becomes easily because the data is normalized for the performance, and statistical analysis can be easily variability. If variability at one particular center is 25% and at another center is 5%, the mutually acceptable is very, very difficult in such incidents. Limit is say 10% for the variability. Then all the centers below 10% variability. Then it is easier to compare the data. And of course, retrieval and archival data as per regulatory requirement, because they might come for inspection later on. So, contents, these are organization which involves trial facility management, analytical project manager, trial staff responsibilities. There are facilities which is waste disposal, the equipment which includes material and reagents, also plus equipment including material and reagents, system or quality system which involves standard operating procedures and application, the planning of work, analytical plan and content, trial material, there's a receipt of chain of custody logistics, then there's a conduct of work which includes computer systems, method validation. Then there is a reporting of results, general analytical report, and we will discuss about contents also. Of course, the quality control and quality audit, storage and retention of records, and confidential. These are the aspects which are as per WHO documentation. Here I am actually WHO documentation because it is more encompassing than the ICMR guidelines. The ICMR guidelines has given lots of specifics. We go to laboratory organization and personnel, laboratory facilities especially, they're given lots of details which may be useful constructing a facility, but then at the same time for a small laboratory it may not be possible to have those many rooms, and that kind of costing as well, and multiple also. As long as we are complying to the requirements of and reliability, and then other aspects which are inherently inbuilt in GCLP. We not referring to ICMR guideline, but referring to WHO guidelines. Ensure compliance to the of GCP is a major responsibility of trial facility management. So here the trial facility management means the clinical lab may be part of the medical college, or which may be part of a separate entity, as maybe which is possible or which has been existing in the organization. See, but they have to ensure that the qualified appropriate facilities have been given to them. The qualified people are employed as the heads of the function, are available to them, are of appropriate standards, and they are made available to them in right quantity and at right. The record of all people, including their qualifications, their training, their experience, and the job description. So quality manual. See, there can be multiple. See, the quality manual for an institution can have sub sections, including, see, one for example for other laboratories, one for clinical laboratories, staff, and list of SOPs and all that. So they may have a slightly different modified version of quality statement. They mention maintain as a record or as a separate document as per the to understand perform. So this is of course inherently meant that the training is given appropriate manner, and retraining and retraining and retraining, that is absolutely necessary. And there are changes happening all around the world in every function of things has to be clearly transferred to the staff. So ensure that the health and safety precautions within the trial or international recognition. Of course, we have now COVID, and providing PPK to actually collecting swabs, or even those who are running PCR and multiple. In fact, we in a hospital, and we sometimes discuss a lot. Even I have good friends who were working in a municipal hall, and the most neglected people actually in the big, at least in the beginning, were the technicians who were doing PCR to all the samples from all over the city, and they were given the least importance in terms of providing safety precautions. Picked up later on, but still. And another aspect, which, for example, the Safai Karmacharis disposing of all the waste collected for COVID patients, they were also quite neglected in the beginning. Places, but this needs to be taken care of in all facilities, and it's a management perspective. And even they are told that you can't take off the PPK because it costs 1,000 rupees. That was in the big. People were not allowed even bio breaks, not even food, couldn't even drink water. But then these are the fix, and there has to be proper balance. I mean, of course, we can't expect management to provide 2-3 PPK per person, and at the same time, we can't ask employee to stay away from food or bio breaks. So there has to be critical balance, and it's not difficult. It's a very difficult aspect to balance. So it's very easy for me to say, but there has to be a thin line of balance. So in be appropriate SOPs are established and followed, and historical files of all standard operating procedures are maintained. So here, this is part the SOPs, the versions, all other documents, work instructions, specific test instructions, test process maintained, and even the purchase history, everything is maintained appropriately. Quality audit program by designated people, that is extremely important to be assured by facility management. While facility management is not going to work on bench, quality audit people are going to work, and they are going to execute the quality trial facility management. So the management has access to the compliance. Definitely not be involved in the conduct of studies, conduct of tests, but they should be doing only quality. So there has to be an analytical be performed by the facility. So all we can't the test facility cannot accept any sample which is out of their purview. That will not only waste the time for people who send the sample, but it may jeopardize for which samples, because it may delay the outcome for this particular patient, and instead of the protocol. See, there are amendments to the analytical plan which are to be documented, to be taken by the study investigator or principal investigator or sponsor and or regulatory criticality of this amendment. These protocols and analytical plans, their versions, and it's also the management also has to ensure that sufficient number of people are available for the timely and proper. So there, it can't be understaffed and overstaffed. For each trial, an individual with an appropriate qualification and training and experience should be appointed as an analytical project is initiated in the trial facility. So if it is necessary to replace this man, it should be documented appropriately and done for the same. There should be one individual who is identified as a management of the archives of the data which is used for the retention of trial and facility records. This for 15 or 20 years as per the standards required for the company, for the sponsor. Is that after the last regulatory submission, 20 years. That's the way. So it can actually go much beyond 20 years. For any by trial facilities, the trial facility management is responsible to the sponsor for this conduct. Of course, this has to be done with sponsors' approval. For example, transport of samples from one site to another. So it cannot be done by trial facility. It has to be outsourced. But there are a lot of chain of activities which undergo in this, and it has to be well maintained and pre parties involved. So the responsibility for overall conduct of analysis performed by trial facility and for its reporting managers primary responsibility. He is actually the person on bench who is responsible, and he has to agree to the analytical plan by signature and date stamp for his and for his agreement to the content. He has to ensure the adherence of procedures as specified in the analytical plan. He cannot change the test method, the instrumentation. Everything has to be specified in the analytical plan, and he has to be for the modification of documentation together with the reason for change, if at all the reason for there is a need for change, and this has to be done in time, in a fully documented and recorded manner. So with appropriate approvals from the investigator and the sponsor. So this date means that acceptance of responsibility for the validity of results, and also in turn confirm, once the person signs along the dotted line, it means that I am responsible for the validity of the results. I am accept that raw data and data matches, and hereby I confirm the data is compliant with GCLP, lab facility is compliant with GCLP. It is a mutually acceptable data. So ensure that the results are only issued under dated signature of authorities. So like or the laboratory head, whosoever is supposed to sign this report, has to be signed on a particular of the report production, and this has to be ensured by the APM. The APM also ensures that the completion of analysis and report and results, the raw data and supporting documentation are archived and retained. If the samples are to be retained for a shipment, that also needs to be overseen by analytical project manager. The trial staff responsibilities. All staff with the trial aware of all the guidelines that apply to their work. It's not just the whatever is applicable to the work, but they need to know all the relevant, be conversant with those. But whatever is directly applicable to them, they must know by heart and must implement also by heart. Are responsible for recording of the raw material promptly and accurately in compliance with these guidelines, and are responsible for the data. So all staff are also responsible for following instructions given in the trial protocol, analytical plan, the SOPs, the work procedure, whatever is document provided to them to run the test. Coming to trial facilities, be of suitable size. Like here, the ICMR specifies there has to be reception area and all that. Not go in that detail right now because that is really not essential to understand GC as a part of introduction to GCLP. everyone is familiar with many aspects, because all of you, most of you are actually working in such an environment, and probably some implemented also in part ICMR guidelines. But so the facilities, of course, has to be of suitable size. You can't have a say one only for reception area. If we don't get say those many number of patients, we can't have big facility sample collection. It has to be appropriate with the business functionality and expected turnover, and the number of samples per day or per hourly basis. So construction and location has to meet these requirements. And in addition, see, we don't have facility just for trial purpose. Normally, the same lab also carries out tests for uh, patient care. Balance between these two. So has to be segregation if required. If patient is going to visit the facility, priority treatment needs to be given to such patient, and how that can be given should be actually built in while facility is. So there should be, and this is to minimize any disturbance that might interfere the validity of the trial. So if the trial entire day for his to collect sample, and that's going to actually be problematic for him. So, and he just sample was not collected on time for him. So it jeopardizes the conduct of trial as well. So appropriately sufficient size for the type of work being performed should be provided. Adequate degree of separation and security to us. Here again, for as a part of a GCP, the confidentiality or their samples or their identity has to be maintained. So, designated areas and then appropriate segregation needs such an aspect. The suitable facility should be available for preparation of trial supplies in order to preparation of such material. So there are for any trial, the sample analysis is normally pretty rare that a particular test which is not there in the protocol is ordered. That happens only when there is a or adverse drug reaction, and the test which is outside the protocol may have to be done. But time everything will be predefined. The trial supplies for collection, transport, analysis will be predefined. So how this will be stored, how this will be handled, who will receive them outside, how this will be disposed of, how they will be destroyed, everything is predefined by the clinical laboratory, documented well in advance. In addition, if there are multiple trials running, so the cross contamination never happens, and the mix up of trial samples of material also does. The archive facilities should be for safe and secure archive storage. So care should be taken for fireproof or electric shock proof material. The retrieval of data, reports, and samples and specimens should be the requirements of the trial, and only authorized people should be able to access that. The data should be here, and only selected people should be able to access that. So for the storage of trial records, third party is acceptable, because it may not be possible always to have archives within the facilities. Instances where these archival facilities go out of business, so the changeover of such archival facilities should also be happens. And of course, it generally doesn't happen all of a sudden overnight. There are indications that such incidents might happen. timeline is available to go through this changeover of archive facilities, and it should be implemented accordingly. Sometimes we go out of existence, and it should be appropriately. The waste disposal for the handling and disposal of waste generated during performance trial should be carried out in a manner that is consistent with local. So here it's not only the national guidelines applicable, but hello, there is a disturbance. Can you mute all people? Okay, so which is having its own rules along with the national and international guidelines. We have equipment and material and reagents part now. Analysis of trial material and operation should be suitably located. Naturally, this is a very logical. I mean, most of these things are logical and common. Compliance will not happen. And designing adequate capacity. They should not be used along with the other tests. Equipment should be segregated for analysis. The trial runs, the runs of machine for clinical trial should be separate. Or if sponsor has no objection, it can be clubbed for operational reasons. Sometimes the quality control may not be possible. The QC samples separately again because of the cost involved and whatnot. There will be multiple factors. In such case, trial material can be along with other clinical patients' material, but normally it would be otherwise segregated, done separately. Equipment use should be periodically inspected, cleaned, maintained, calibrated as appropriate. That there is a frequency which is predefined for each and every equipment. Equipment, or it could be even as small as a microscope, but there is a maintenance schedule for each and every. Because of such maintenance and unscheduled maintenance or calibration should be retained. So if there is a problem in particular, then there is a shutdown, and if there is alternative made available, which is of the matching specifications, documented, intimated to sponsor, and any impact analysis on the results should be done if there is any change in equipment. If it impacts the results, because now the tendency is always to use the best machine for available test. In case of any problems, maybe an alternative is used, which is the normal machine, but then there is no alternative as well at the same time, but to use another machine. So documented. So all equipment service schedule listing all relevant equipment and the schedule plan. Actually, it's like similar to having a plan for the test, actually master plan. Any equipment that is out of service for any reason should be clearly identified as such, and equipment users should be suitably trained in the operation of the. So you can't just catch hold of someone on a day particular that someone is not come for the run the test. There has to be training priorly so as to run the test and equipment. In all cases, the equipment for the purpose for which the test is being. The material and reagents used in analysis should demonstrably fit for the purpose. Here, the specifications of the chemicals used, which are specified in the test, should be absolutely matched for the purpose, and we cannot use any other kit which is not possible to, it may not kind of change in kit if we use it on some other machines. For example, say there are the dry chemistry methods and we cannot use wet chemistry, but no, we have to actually predefine in even in such cases. So reagents should be suitably labeled and indicate the concentration, the specific storage instructions, the stability. The stability information may include the preparation date and expiration date, prepared and who authorized all this information. There are many times these dyes are used in staining that to be prepared afresh, or sometimes they have very short stability. Such sub information should be captured in the label. Let's come to SOPs. Aspect, and we have already covered major part of it in the first morning session. Of need a very elaborate training which can even run for a period of even 3 days. So these are the tools, direct tools, which ensure the quality of trial facility management. And management, we also discussed why the top management has to approve the facility. It's not always the lower study personnel can approve the SOPs. They have no authority. Only top management has the authority. It is intended to ensure the quality, and that's why the management has to sign that. The data generated has to be of a reliable quality and be of a has to be proper integrity. So it will be based on, of course, published textbooks, articles, manuals, and even previous experiences and incidences, which also, especially with benchtop stability of the reagent, should be incorporated. And the SOPs therefore be periodically reviewed to be current and up to date. And only current are made available to the staff. In one of my inspections, it was observed that there were active at the same time at a particular site. And the reason was given to me that there are two different trials. It was the same sponsor, however, but there were two different trials ongoing and two different SOPs for the same. There was some reason. So in such case, we can't have two SOPs for the same function active, because the staff who is performing the duty, which SOP is active, which SOP is to be executed for the particular test to be run. So in such case, all retire the previous SOP and create a special for a previously running trial, create a special work instruction old SOP. So that will be solving the problem. But we cannot have two SOPs to be current and up to date. There will be only for each function. And there will be, of course, master list of SOPs with version number history, the current, and up to date list. This become the part of archives as well, including the SOPs. And SOPs should be immediately available to the staff. Once it becomes an active, it should be made available to the relevant staff, the study director, PI. It doesn't go out of the institution. That's why it shared outside investigation. But when sponsor visits the lab facility, the SOP should be made available for their, can say, relevant to, and which are of course relevant to the activities being performed therein. The trial supplies, which are the SOPs we need to have? This is just not a complete list, but a partial list. We can have many more functions here, but I'm just illustrating the which is mentioned in the guideline. It includes trial supplies, the supply, preparation, shipment, and storage supplies, which is related to trial. So it could be actually even packing material. kits, it could be sample collection kits, it could be samples archiving material samples, etc., etc. There could be one stationery required fire trial supply. There could be forms which are to be filled patient or the facility. And there could be data capture equipment also available. So all these are form trial supplies. Equipment related operation, maintenance, cleaning, calibration of equipment, the frequency, the methodology, equipment maintenance and operation, all has to be generated. How that will be quality control, how that will be quality, how that will undergo quality assurance, how that will be recorded. Everything has to be written down in SOPs. So the record keeping, so coding of trials, how does this happen? So if there is a coding of sample, uh, most probably the samples will be arriving in a coded manner, but coding at the center level, at the clinical lab level, there could be data collection, which is related to the patients, how that will of reports, how what will the content of report, indexing systems, how samples will be indexed, how the data generated will be handled, communicated across all the relevant parties, how the computerized data will be archived or stored in the servers, and how that will be archived. All this needs to be jotted down in separate SOPs. Trial material storage, retrieval, and chain of custody of samples. All this has to be preparation of trial packs, the procedure for receipts, transfer, and sampling, storage, identification, care of trial material. These are some of the aspects of sampling related to sampling for which SOP needs to be read. The procedure for analysis of trial sample, this is the crux of everything. We do all this to carry out the procedures for analysis of trials. So they should be enough and ample training should be given, because see, like we have seen in the last presentation that most of the deficiencies which were found by were in the execution of work. So, execution of protocol, there were major deficiencies. But despite all this system, despite all this training, the major deficiency happens in the execution of protocol. So this, therefore, a lot of emphasis should be given for these SOPs, which are related to analysis of trials to be done, because that error is directly related to the quality of the result, quality of the outcome of the patient's safety, etc. So this is most important aspect and should be given sufficient details in attention by everyone. SOPs which are supplementary in nature in terms of operations can be a little bit given less, but they are important so that this procedures for analysis of trial samples be written in a of course, quality control procedures. The quality control procedures are operated by trial facility to ensure the quality and accuracy of the results, precision, everything of the person, of the taste, of the sample. These are multi normally in a lab. These procedures should have written down, should be written down, approved by the sponsor also for their utility. And then, of course, the audit, which is done by designated quality audit people. In performing and reporting trial audits, inspections, and analytical report reviews. So, see, there are instances in where it is very difficult to follow labeling aspects, and ESR, manual ESR. There are tubes, and you can't, very difficult to label them. So how that is, and when there are hundreds of samples for ESR, so how that mix-up is avoided is very interesting. There are a lot of experience. Small test, but which is very important test in many studies. So it becomes times to follow regular procedures for various aspects, and so quality control and the quality audit trail for this quality control and execution of this labeling and non-mix-up of samples becomes very essential. Planning of work goes next. Analytical plan for each trial. Written analytical plan will exist. This is of to the staff. When, at what stage, which sample will come for which patient, and what will be his phase of sample, what kind of sampling is going to be considered. The first workup will be almost entire, first and last will be complete entire work, but in workup may be only partial samples. And of course, the patients come at different time, so that one patient has having entire initial workup and another patient is having only interim workup. So all that will for each and every study, and analytical plan has to envisage all such aspects in an. So this plan should be added by date sign up APM and the sponsor and investigators. So this should be, of course, part of the contractual agreement. At the same time, this analytical plan has direct correlation with the value of the contract. So from the facility management as well, and it should be written as a part of the recording of the trial. And modifications which will go will follow the good documentation practices, and it has to be again be agreed and amended, and which means that acceptance of the changes along with reasons, along with approval for all the concerned sponsor if required, and regulatory authority also if required. So what is the content of analytical plan? So it should be detailed enough to provide clear instruction. The analytical plan has to be sufficiently detailed for identification of what is the work to be done, what is the title, the nature and purpose of the work, the unique identifier link with the work within the analytical plan, returning, chain of custody and identity of samples, sponsors and trial facility, investigator, trial facility, APM, the scientists involved sometimes, and the dates and signatures of sponsor, start and completion dates, the analytical process, the methods to be used during analysis of trial, published analytical methods, detailed information on analytical design, methods, materials to be and the types and frequency of analysis, the measurements, observations, examinations to be performed, how they are to be recorded, they are to be analyzed, the analytical process, the preparation and shipment of material, example, sample collection kits to be covered by. It may happen that sample collection kits may be prepared and they site, and the site collects the material sample and ships it back analytical lab, and how to prepare trial packs or such logistics to be there in the analytical plan. So this initial agreement, the type and number of trial materials to be received. So it has also to be so that the trial material is not misused for any other purpose than stipulated and defined in the protocol. So we say 20 tests, then maybe probably 22 test kits are sent in order to ensure that the supplies, and in case there is a problem in one kit, the alternative kit which is gone bad, or maybe destroy it with proper documentation. So all the method and condition or between different locations from one site to the laboratory and to the whatever is applicable. The conditions of blending and unblending procedure to be followed. So samples may be blended even at laboratory level for the purpose of analyzing the quality sometimes, or maybe whatever reason, or maybe sometimes reveals the treatment option which is being given to the subject. So that also needs to be taken care of. So it records for method of analytical plan should of course instead of reporting results, the list of records to be retained and the location on completion of the work, and how what is the time the records will be taken out of the lab and sent to the location of archival. There has to be in quality audit extremely important, and there has to be provision for unplanned quality audit as well, so which will be surprise assurance plan. Of course, the frequency of such surprises will be low, but quality audit to be performed should assure that the quality and integrity of data and accuracy of this. So frequency has to be appropriate. In a long-term trial, there has to be more frequent quality audits, maybe quarterly or maybe bi-monthly. In a shorter trial, there could be one every 15 days or one, depending on the length of the trial. So this has to be part of the analytical plan. If subcontracting is required, but we cannot subcontract, analytical lab cannot subcontract analytical or other study related work of sponsors. Basically, sponsor has contracted lab to carry out the analytical work, and if that itself is being subcontracted, never be accepted by the sponsor. So then sponsor can directly go to that lab where you are going to subcontract. And many times the lab which is outsourcing may not be capable of actually conducting an analysis of that subcontracting lab for the purpose of trial. So they may not be GCLP compliant facility. They staff. So all such aspects are required to be checked. They may not have proper documentation practices. They may not have appropriate approvals, and so many aspects which the current lab has undergone and got the project awarded to it. Acting is very especially for analytical test related work is really no. It cannot be done. A major issue, and sponsor also makes an initiative in that direction. So the trial facility and trial facility management are to the sponsor. That's why this responsibility is for the trial facility management towards the sponsor for the conduct of subcontract. Actually, subcontracting through the trial facility or the contracted lab, and ultimate responsibility. They are still responsible, but then at the operational level, the trial facility management becomes responsible. And the confirmation that subcontractor will, in accordance with GCLP and other trial requirements, that assurance has to be generated by lab, and it will be of course endorsed by the relevant authorities, including sponsor. The contract for subcontracted work call should be clearly spelling out what are the details of analysis. I mean, it can't be just all of a sudden your machine is and you're contracting that work to another lab. That's not a way to function. The trial, the receipt, handling, storage, retrieval, and management of trial material should be designed to prevent mix-ups. So this mix-up, the reception area, how they're stored, how they're labeled, should never in a in general patient care, clinical analysis. This material should be kept separately because this material is absolutely to be accounted and special design for the purpose of clinical trial. See, it may not be possible that even a simple test uh, to be done by using ordinary kit which is used in a patient care, but a special care is for sampling kits which are specifically meant for the trial patient. It should be adequately, of course, identified. So then only it can be segregated. Otherwise, it is not possible. The trial material should be checked on receipt to confirm numbers, the source, the date of arrival, condition on arrival. All this has to be recorded. And the facilities and procedures which are designed and operated to maintain the trial material traceability should follow all the procedures which are part of the chain of the custody. The records be maintained to chain of custody. So if anything goes wrong, or anything has to be inspected, or anything has to be audited for routine audit purpose, the chain of custody of trial material should be possible. Who, what, when, where, and how should be help the sponsor and the trial facility to analyze if anything management in generating the kappa, that is preventive and corrective and preventive. Now the retrospective evaluation of material storage. So if there is something wrong, if these results are going wrong because of material issue, if audit chains are maintained. So trial material integrity be monitored by controlled conditions of storage areas to be no shipped over a particular temperature range, and most difficult to maintain is normal. Sometimes the refrigerator temperature is easier to maintain because the conditions are very well defined between say below it is very easy to maintain, but because it is easily identified, but to maintain between 2 to 8 degrees or room temperature which is stipulated to be 25 to 30 degrees is very tough to maintain because room temperature is never uh, in general in a transport system, and it can vary up to 40 degrees also, and of course in and very hot and humid areas the temperature can go up to 48 degrees as well on particular days. So very tough aspect this is. So contingency plan to define action in case of failure of such equipment. It should be placed. So like for example, there has to be uh, uh, alarm system to the security in place, because if anything happens to the refrigerator in night, it goes to the security. In case the security fails to respond, then there will be second level at the study personnel or the facility in charge as per the uh, uh, equipment are designed. And of course, today's time, there are who are very actively providing such services, and of course, they are very expensive, but they can be implemented. Earlier, being done manually. So, preparation of samples, collection kits, the systems used for preparation and and the return of the material to the trial facility should be documented and validated. So there has to be dry runs for all even before probably the protocol is finalized, so that any issues which are existing, any operational which are problematic can be ironed out, and validations can be created. So this becomes important data done in a completely compliant manner, but this becomes validation uh, record in any case. So detailed logistic be documented in analytical plan. So this logistic details has to be part of the analytical plan, finalized and being part of the analytical plan. The type of material, design pack, of distribution from trial facility to the investigator site and return, the checks to be performed, the storage record in the analytical plan, archival plan, QC of all processes of logistic to confirm and conformance of practice with defined requirements. Especially when there is import of kits, which is happening, have to do their own checks for their own requirements. So extra number of kits should be allowed, or how these checks are going to be performed present during this check by customs, because at least if not sponsor designated by sponsor or investigator for such activity, at least a person from logistic company should that such checks are performed under supervision and not in a haphazard manner by the customs, because they may actually damage the package and in turn topple the entire analytical plan and the logistic and the time cycle of the entire trial. In the experience, in fact, this has happened in one of the trials which was being done in another country, and financial loss and data loss to the company. So quality control of all processes of logistics to confirm the conformance of requirements. So there has to be quality control of all the logistic data. So each and every person has to check, each and every form has to be checked. Step has to be quality controlled, that okay, X number of kits came and X were ordered, kits came to that level. It has to be quality control. The conduct of work will be in detail now. It should be according to an analytical plan. All the data which is generated during the conduct of analytical plan should be recording directly from legibly, and Alcoa plus principles which we detailed in the previous session should be good documentation practices. They apply across all the GXP guidelines, any practices guidelines. The Alcoa plus principles valid, and especially since we deal with the safety and efficacy of a particular drug for the patient care or for the purpose of future care for the patients. It is very important that we have this responsibility of doing things right for the first time, at right time, in the right manner, and at right time. So any change should not be obscured, and previous entry indicate the reason for a change. Errors can happen, and they should not, just because errors happen, and they should be dealt in a positive manner. Training should be given if there is repeated error. All these corrections should be authorized by appropriately signing and putting date and time. Here, especially date and time becomes important, because sometimes the analysis may be done even in the night, and the corrections can happen at a different time. different of the sample, recording the data and the correction and issues which are related to that. The computer system should meet general requirements for equipment as described. It has to be appropriate for the functions. Particular computer which is attached to particular equipment is not supposed to be used for any other purpose. So it should not. It should be appropriately validated and maintained and be demonstrably fit for the purpose. So, which are used to receive. There are, of course, data capture things, which are scanners for barcodes, which into computer and verify the contents and other aspects, label and has been sent by the sponsor to capture, process, or report data should be acquired, developed, and tested, and released, used, maintained, and according to guidelines of the course. So whether and this of course needs validation in the beginning. Other of GLP principles to computerized systems. There is a FDA guideline for CFR Part 11 compliance. This becomes so. The facility need to address the security and operation aspect. Again, here there has to be a sort of a level access, which is change control. Who accesses the computer? There has to be login with a secure password, which keeps on changing at a particular frequency, monthly or week, whatever is acceptable to the facility. There has to be any data breach records, if at all any data breach is there. If anyone tries to log in somebody else's credentials, this is very difficult to encompass, but sharing of password captured and the system should be created. I mean, it is possible to do that, but it's a very tough aspect of is not present in this facility and he is still logged in. It becomes one alarm that security system is not appropriate. And how to address that is a facility decision. So maintenance of data audit, date and timestamps, the individual responsible for collection of the data, the system for change control procedures, the maintenance and system security procedures that ensure the integrity. These are all aspects which lead to integrity of the data. It has happened that people have access the computer through called as DOS access. I mean, there is a backend access through which data has been changed. But this also has been captured by trained auditors who actually can access the computer or such an endeavor done by study personnel. If data is written electronically, means to ensure that data will always be retrieved. So it is not possible that okay, we have formatted data is gone now. So it has to be actually stored in a service. There has to be proper backup, and all these have to be in. More so because we now have computerized systems everywhere, and our intent is to go paperless more and more. Everything is EDC and even the results and even the transmission of results, everything is electronic now. So current regulatory standards and sponsors expectations should be met for the selection of instrument and analytical methodologies. we are required to use state-of-the-art analytical methodologies and equipment for the awarded. Each analytical method used should be appropriately documented, validated. This is of course as per the plan in analytical. This is part of analytical plan, which has been. So changes to the method should be controlled and validated as a result in the issue of further version. When even the methods are required to be versioned. So work instruction or SOP should give a number. If there are multiple methods available for a particular taste, they also should be appropriately identified and relevant. So separate, there is any change in process, the next version should be released and the previous process becomes invalid. So analytical method then should be properly validated to establish and demonstrate its fitness for the purpose. Here that this is exactly we don't say you have to do a lot of specificity, precision, accuracy, repeatability, and other things. This is actually saying that you do, and you have to validate method for even dilution, with all aspects which are, which are actually you can imagine in a sample. So each analytical method has to be appropriately validated. What validation specified, but of course we know that specificity, accuracy, precision, repeatability, stability, everything has to be taken. There are much more aspects of this, but certainly this is with respect to analysis, but it is difficult when it comes to some taste. Say for example, Saturn are much more individualistic and subjective. So here, how this standardization will be done? It's a challenge, extremely it's a challenging thing. And here, the individual person's experience, error history, or maybe some other methodology can be established so that a particular becomes validated for that particular purpose. So records must be maintained to demonstrate the validity within the trial facility. If a sample is received late, beyond particular time limit, becomes invalid in sometimes. So no changes in analytical platform without prior consultation or agreement with the sponsor be done. Such changes are absolutely strictly no. But they must be controlled. If they happen, they should be controlled, documented, and appropriately authorized and be validated. Again, see, their validation happens. Uh, there are certain issues, many times, which which happen during operation. How to deal with that is always a challenge. See, the trial within a time frame which is consistent for the patient's safety issues and trial protocol, analytical plan, actual requirements. So that again is very important aspect, because if delayed analysis means patient compromised. The documented procedures governing rules for repeat analysis should be consistent with the pharma. See, there are pharma industry has very stringent rules for repeating analysis. So no one can repeat results, expected results. That is not the way. We need. There is not a way to go. doing any kind of test. So you cannot go on testing particular samples. It falls within normal limits. So such kind of repeat procedures can be included in the analytical plan. Say, for example, there must be a range rated for a particular test, and the sample is actually giving results which is out of calibration range. In can which can be twofold or fourfold or tenfold, whatever is feasible, depending on the results. And such out of calibration results should be how it can be done, and the time frame for such investigation. Everything has to be part of the analytical plan. So the specific rules covering the performance of repeat analysis has to be for itself. How many repeats are acceptable, and why and who authorizes this, and we inform a priori should be mentioned in the protocol. So the laboratory procedure should take into account of practices and addressing the self-handling of hazardous substance and trial material. So all international practices, in addition, the local, say for example, radioactive material is being used, then local standards also become very important, because you cannot destroy radioactive material like general material. So reporting results, there are of course analytical report, and then analytical report is a formal report which may be issued on completion of work, which is taking view of the work which was initiated till completed as per detailed analytical plan. And whereas analytical result means documents of test or tests which are issued rapidly on completion of sample analysis on that particular day. So analytical type of reporting mechanism, the time frame to be followed for such issuances report should be part of the agreement. All the be subject to the quality control. So each and every report has to be signed by quality control, that it matches the raw data which is collected or completing doing the test. There are no transcription errors. The accuracy and data, there are any calculations which are involved are done accurately, should be certified by quality control. Say reports or results should be provided to the sponsor and administrator as appropriate. And of course, they should be, if copies go to sponsor, the and the confidentiality of subjects should be blanked out. All this, there are many instances that people blanking out in communication with the sponsors. There are issues which are related to, of course, earlier there was no requirement that sponsor informs such breach of confidentiality to regulator, but now multiple instances, even the regulator has to be and even the ethics committee or appropriate communication has to be sent by all concerned people. A copy of all issued analytical reports should be retained by the trial facility. So it cannot be destroyed. But how they are to be stored can be agreed upon, whether soft copies are acceptable, hard copies are to be stored, how long they are to be stored, the method of destruction and everything. Have analytical project management manager to indicate acceptance, the responsibility for the validity of the data, integrity of the data, and the extent of compliance should be indicated. Of course, the APM cannot say I'm 100% compliant. He has to say that we have done everything to comply fully with the principles of, and there is no other way. I mean, so Audit people from the sponsor side will verify, the regulatory authorities also will verify that this compliance is requirements, and then probably there may be some kind of certificates released by a sponsor, or if at all it is a content of the analytical report. Of course, identification of analytical work, descriptive titles, identifications related to patients, sites, investigators, the clinical trial, sponsors, investigators involved, and the project managers, then start of completion and quality audit certificate if it is applicable, description of methods and materials used, including presentation of how the results will be presented, presentation, capturing all the data and information as per analytical plan has to be done. The location where analytics are required to be written will be specified in the analytical report, and if already executed, such will be mentioned in the report. Any corrections or amendments or additions to the final analytical report, the reasons for amendment will be authorized to release of the analytical report. This should be reported, reissued in with corrections if required. Apply as with analytical reports, so I will not go. Let's go to the quality aspect of it. Control and quality assurance during the last presentation. I will not go again over that. The trial facility quality control procedures in order to ensure the quality and accuracy of all aspects of work performed and reported. So at every step, right from writing a protocol till archiving, retrieval from archival happens, or till archival period is over, the quality control is always active. This test facilities will describe the membership of external and okay, that's the next topic. So all these aspects will have trial management at what level, at how the quality controls, the forms designed for how this data will be processed by quality assurance later on will be defined by SOPs of the, and wherever appropriate, that it should describe the membership to external accreditation and performance proficiency schemes to demonstrate the competency of the competency of lab, the competency of facilities, the competency of analyst or study personnel, and the rank analysis, the improvements, everything has to be appropriately analyzed, and the data has to be stored with the external accreditation program, that there is a consistently lower or there are consistent problems, then what kind of corrective and preventive action taken, what kind of if there is a person related or there is a chemical related issue or there is an instrument related issue, all these have to be investigated and appropriate action be taken, and the performance has to be improved over the time period. So quality audit, the independent audit with the trial protocol and legal plan, SOP and GCLP can be conducted. That is very, very because that assures the independence and non-compete clause, and of course gives a lot of credibility to site, to the laboratory, and even to the sponsor. What involves the facility, system, equipment, methods, the quality control procedures, the personnel, the reports, documentation, specific audits only for facilities or only for people or only for the reports, and in a detailed manner done will be of course envisaged in quality audit related SOPs, and a competent person, I mean, which is designated by trial facility management. He should not be doing involved in day-to-day work phase, but be independent of work being audited. So a person who is actually quality assurance in one trial, personally in another trial, otherwise there is a conflict of interest. And see, independent audits by external experts is always, all the audits results should be recorded. So irrespective whether they failed, there is an issue, there is a wrong thing, a partial completion, whatever may be the case, all the data should be recorded. The report contain all the observations made during the audit, and whenever applicable, any corrective actions which are taken should be recorded. And the project manager and trial facility management should respond to these audit reports in timely manner, because if there is a concern, there is a critical remark or observation which is going to affect the outcome of the trial, has to be addressed by the management. Here the role of management becomes very, very important, and also that of APM. Time is a key factor over here. So any kappa which is indicated should be tracked to the ensure approved out of that kappa, what training is required, whatever corrective actions, changes of a part of an instrument, or changes of a reagent, or changes in the supply agency, or changes of the logistic company, anything which is actually an error or where a corrective action is required, it should be taken, revalidated, and appropriately. So there can be an audit certificate on satisfactory completion of the audit, and it identifies the activities audit, the compliance of those activities in this guideline. So it can be done by internal audit, also done by external, or whosoever is doing storage and retention of records. The records and data appropriate authorities or trial protocol. So maybe 15 or 20 years, depending on some sponsors and regulatory requirements. 20 years after the last regulatory submission will be appropriate. So actually, it will go beyond 20 years. Sample specimens and analytical results if issued the final report. Of course, we cannot store samples and specimens. They will be stored only till they are in the state of being analyzed again. So if sample gets plasma sample is gets expired, I mean, say within 6 months, then after 6 months, the destruction should be in as per stipulated process, and so as per SOP. And the sponsor should be informed about that. Okay, these many samples are on this and this date. So sponsor's approval also is taken a priori. So QA should be retained because of all the personnel related records like qualification, their certificates of qualification, experience, the job descriptions, the previous job descriptions, everything becomes record. The record and reports of maintenance and calibration of equipment, they are also very important. Actually assure that test systems are in line with the function required. The historical files access, then there are any operating manuals which should be part of SOP. The quality control test performed to confirm the accuracy of the work. They should be also part of the retention record. The trial material has to be retained in such a way to ensure the integrity and accessibility of material. So, the preserving the nature of whatever is being retained should be retained till the end of the retention time. So, for example, if there is a thermal ink print, it will not remain in the readable state. Maybe sometimes it is like it will fade within 15 days. So SOP Xerox all such records and cross sign and get it approved or authorized by appropriate authority within time frame of conducting the test, and then retain this photocopied uh, results is important. Of course, it is definitely important to retain all these original printouts which have come out of thermal print. But definitely ways of reading the data even if it is faded. So in case there is a legal matter erupts, we read these thermal prints. And if a trial facility does not have appropriate facilities for this retention of the record, the contract archives again, if for such a trial facility, archive facility would go has no legal successor. How this situation will be done should be defined in the beginning. So, confidentiality, the last aspect, procedure for the handling of trial material, collection of data, the reporting of results should be designated to maintain as defined in GCP. The study blinding and coding arrangements with the requirements is again with the GCP and the trial protocol. The sponsor should be informed in any event, either accidental or arising out of investigation requirement, compromise the study blinding. So sponsor has to be informed that okay, study blinding had to be broken because of safety issues to the subject, and for such subject afterwards is sponsor's prerogative. The sponsor will have their own SOPs and policies in case of the blinding is broken. So, but from the trial site or laboratory site, from the sponsor, and of course, sponsor's proprietary information is not disclosed to anyone other than the authorized individuals. So only those people supposed to be privy of sponsors material, the sponsor kits, the trial kits, the trial information, the documents, special procedures, the special tests, everything should be kept confidential by everyone, including the study personnel who is performing the trial management, site management. So for this particular topic, which were referred were good clinical practices guideline, which was adopted by WHO, and which was in part. Of course, ICH, GCP, and OECD series of GLP documentation were also referred wherever required. So that completes this presentation. So thank you very much for patiently listening. If there is any address some of them, and then we can go for quiz. Hello.
Dr. Vishnu Bhatt had some queries in the morning. So if he would like to ask. Dr. Vishnu Bhatt?
Yeah. So this SOPs you are telling, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Yeah. So research SOPs you are mentioning,
Yes.
there will be so many research activities going on. So we have separate SOP for each proposal, or we can have one common with specification for each protocol. Because each research activity there will be a protocol submission, which will be approved by the Institute Research Council and Ethical Committee. So they will serve as a SOP, or you should have a separate SOP for each.
Okay.
Or are you talking
This is a
regulatory research?
Operation. I mean, see, for example, yeah, I got. I didn't, though I did not hear completely. Have grasped his question, contents of his question. See, if there are multiple ways of doing the same task, do we require, or there are different needs by different group of people?
I'll simplify the.
Yeah, that is what this question is. Yeah.
I'll simplify the
I mean, I'll
question.
address both the situations. See that. Yeah. Yeah, please.
No. Normally, in any medical college, for example, he is representing one of our constant medical colleges, and he has many research labs and many research activities going on. Normally, standard operating procedures covering GLP or GCLP, one document for the college is sufficient. For each lab is separately required, or for each type of activity it is required. Say for example, biochemistry or microbiology or virology or anything it is required, or for institute one standard operating procedure, one comprehensive document is good enough.
Or one SOP. There will be each, like I mentioned in the morning, that SOP be ideally activity which can be encompassed in a flowchart. So if one activity cannot be really actually captured in one flowchart, okay. So if one particular activity is going beyond this 2-3 flowcharts, then a separate SOP should be written. Situation, of course, but what practically happens across all the departments and laboratories, if the same activities, same equipment, then there can be only one SOP. But if, for example, say hematology, now you are using 18 parameter equipment in one lab, and in OPD you are using just 6 parameter equipment. There difference in the outcome. There may be some difference in the sample collection. There could be difference in these aspects which are different in each particular situation should be captured separately. Then maybe we can have one app, and under which you can mention that okay, at OPD level you can just collect the sample immediately, or maybe at the when there is immediate sample analysis is required, reporting is required for the patient care, then report can be given, short versions of report can be given, and what it will contain, it should be mentioned in that. But it can be part of the Apex SOP for the hematology. So there can be one, but that is again the to the people involved. If they want a big SOP everywhere to be carried out, see, we don't need 18 parameter present in the casualty where only 6 parameters are being analyzed. So those details are not required. Sometimes it may confuse a person. So we can actually say here. This is just an example I'm giving. So it has to be meant to be based on applicability of the SOP and purpose. Basically, the purpose has to be served. Functionality has to be addressed. And at the same time, entire compliance system, every SOP. See, if all these multiple departments, are they part of the one institute? Different institutes. See, because
Yes.
Again, if there are different institutes of a same management, they have different aspects because. Yeah, tell me.
To make my point
can I answer that if you don't mind? Can you give me a minute to answer, sir, Dr. Bhatt, sir? What you asked is
some words I missed.
Understand. No, I understand the CRO side as well as the college side. So may I answer it, please, sir? Sir, for every lab
please go ahead.
every room, this is GLP. This is GLP, and therefore you are talking about SOP. SOP is different for each and every room, every test, every equipment, every personnel who is appointed, for every equipment, how it has to be serviced, how it has to be calibrated, everything is different. Separate one. There is no one, apply to all kind of SOP. The only common SOPs could be that in that lab, in that equipment, the tests which are done, you could have a similar SOP. But if you have a different lab, every activity, every instrument, everything inside the same college, you're talking about, suppose you take AVMC.
Okay, that was his question. I thought it otherwise.
It's
not a real question. I think
if you go to CRO, CRO, you will understand each room will have an SOP hanging on near the door. Everything will be different. So, but
he worked as a dean research in JIPMER. He was the director JIPMER. So the point is not that standard operating procedure is not operating procedure. So, for example, every instrument has got an operating procedure.
No, please,
that is fine.
Sir, please, sir, I understand what was Dr. Bhatt very well. Understand what he's talking about. He's talking to people of different origins, that is people from a college and people from CRO in this audience. So if you are in a CRO, he has to have it in each, because they'll come for FDA audit. Depends on who's auditing. If the FDA audit comes, CADSO audit comes, they'll expect separate SOP to be displayed. Near the ICU also, there has to be a separate SOP displayed. In the ward, it is displayed. Everything is displayed. You can combine it and write it and keep it for the sake of the inspector, but it has to be displayed in its place, every place. So it's a different SOP. It can be only combined into a manual.
But fine. No. What I thought was, in fact, not allowing Dr. Bhatt to speak, but I'll conclude in 30 seconds. Is that I thought for an institute, maybe because once you say operating procedure, whenever I procure an equipment, you prepare an operating procedure. I mean, all said and done, people will be liking to use the equipment from next minute onwards rather than sitting and preparing the operating procedures. Instead, I have for the whole college, for all the equipment, for all the labs, I have some standard operating procedure. As you have rightly put it, near the equipment, near that particular lab, that some section of that standard operating procedures for the college has to be there. There is no doubt about it. Yes, sir. But sir, you complete the question and get the satisfactory answer.
Hello.
Actually, what I was trying to say is that
just 1 second. Let Bhatt complete the question.
There should be some guidelines for the institute.
There is one aspect
guidelines. Whatever you have taught, there are very common guidelines for the institution, like quality assurance, quality control.
Right.
This will be common to all. And as rightly mentioned by others, there will be a specific operating procedure for each equipment or each procedure, whatever you are doing. My question was that suppose if you have a protocol which has been approved by the institutional committees, whether that could be used as a SOP for that procedure. Like I am doing an experiment, I will have an approved which has all methodology, how much I will put what, all those things. So whenever we are auditing, whether that can be used or we should write another subpart SOP. In a regulatory trial, of course, it should be more detailed, so everything has to be there. But for academic trial, I don't think it definitely needed. That's what I was asking. Is it clear?
Yes, Dr. Prasad Bote.
You are talking about academic trial, sir.
See,
Academic trial is fine.
can I
What you're saying is right.
basically it doesn't
Yes, please.
sponsor trial. If you are going to submit your data for registration of a particular product, things. Okay, for example, if there is a issue of kind of confidentiality, what kind of audit trial design is to be opted by academic, or who is the sponsor, then whether there is or not. All these questions were being asked by academic researchers many times, but there is no respite from in terms of see, if you are going to do your academic trial for the purpose of medical aspects of it, then there is no question of doing the. But if you are going to submit this data and get a registration for a particular product, then all the compliance has to be there in place. If you are going to, submission is a criteria, and not only that. See, I wanted to address this question of SOPs. See, probably think he has not attended, the person may not have attended the complete presentation, or maybe there's some understanding aspect, communication gap, I can say, from my side. But SOPs are to be written for each and every aspect separately. SOP, which, see, for example, just I'll say hematology instrument, how to analyze blood, how to report blood hemoglobin. It cannot be, there cannot be a universal SOP all over the world. So there cannot be same SOP which is within an institute for two different labs doing the same test. It can be different, it can be same, but that has to be decided by the people who are in charge of such facilities. Those people will say, okay, no, my technique is different from yours, so I need a separate SOP. Or in case under the same SOP. So because ultimately the test is same, hematology, so, or reporting hemoglobin. So see, instances where a report is required very, very urgently by the treating physician. See, like patient is being treated by sickle cell anemia, but then he can't wait for one day to get results. See, there is a few minutes gap where he needs to take some decision. Who is under operation needs to get additional information from a test which is emergency lab. So their SOPs can be a little bit different. That's where the distinction happens. The functionality of the test being used and the purpose of test, whether it's for submission, it is for addressing the adverse drug event of the patient, or whether it is being used for the normal patient care. That is the segregation we have to do. See, I have to use it for patient care also, but I don't think nobody will agree to that, because there are so many things to be done, so much cost is involved, and so many lots of per cat. So right now, even if we apply the GCLP to clinical trial samples, and those labs who are undertaking such trials, that will be more than enough as of now.
Thank you.
This was a very good question, and it initiated a good debate. So let's go to next part of the presentation.
But still, Dr. Prasad Bose, I really do not know Dr. Vishnumurthy got convinced or not. I fully agree with you for any equipment, for any type of.
I can talk to him
for
again.
any type of.
This I think clear. See, common.
No. What point which I'm telling is, from morning onwards, after hearing your talk, there are some common issues which have to be dealt with all the labs, whether it is confidentiality clause or management or anything. I felt for an institute, I have certain procedures. What are all the approval mechanisms that I have to got? I have to testing procedures, calibration procedures, confidentiality procedures. These things are common. Those things we can have. Then for each lab, I will have one chapter. In that chapter, I will have one each section, one equipment, and I will have the operating procedure for that particular thing. I
See
have
that,
one standard document. So if I put 1 month effort that is done, rather than continuously asking the academicians who are taking care of the patient care also, who are also doing the research, to sit and write the documents. I'm afraid of that.
yes, I agree with you, but this is to be different how they are going to approach this aspect. See, it is the GCLP never mentions that okay, you prepare one master document or 200 SOPs. It is not the prerogative of the guidance. This interpretation has to be done by the institute department, the people who are involved in writing the SOPs, and the management, and of course the key people who are functionalities. See, it is their prerogative to define all these aspects. I don't think there is any, as long as see what GCLP says, you how you show compliance is your job. If you want one SOP for all, I have no problems. You can create 1,000 pages SOP for everything. 100 SOPs for 200 operations or 50 operations, you can create 100 SOPs. It is none of the business of GCLP. It is your say suitability. I mean, it is whatever you do should be acceptable and practicable by you. So whatever is easier is of.
So the take-home message here is that in most of the colleges, for our routine work in the laboratories, in the research laboratories, there are no SOPs specifically stressed because MCI inspections is the one inspection which we face. But now with NAC inspections, UGC inspections, this is becoming more evident that we have to exercise the same kind of caution which the CROs and pharma experience when they have an FDA audit. So that is the standard ICMR is trying to instill in the various colleges. The main purpose of this workshop is to make people, to bring in the awareness that we need to have more caution. How you write the SOP is different, but it is different for different purpose, as you rightly say. And for an administrative point of view, like what Dr. Satyamurthy says, in general, you could have one SOP booklet, but it does vary from situation to situation,
Okay.
be it academic or be it an emergency situation.
Yeah, this is actually maybe if required, I can connect with the concerned person later on. If I mean we can through Dr. Annabelle, and let's move on to the next part. That's a small quiz on covered today. So it's a very simple. There's simple questions, and you can actually jot down answers and share. I'll share my answers later on with. So GLP is about study, planning and performing, the monitoring, recording, archiving, and reporting, or all of. So this is the first question. GLP is responsibility of sponsor and CRO, or the sponsor, CRO, study director, or sponsor, CRO, management, study personnel, or top. Okay, shall we move to next slide?
All right.
Yeah, what are the? Yeah,
Director
I'll wait. In any case, I'm going to share the presentation so people can answer.
Can you repeat the question? It was very long.
Okay. GCP is about the study.
Second question.
Responsibility of option 1. Yeah. Okay. GLP is the responsibility of sponsor and CRO, study director, or sponsor, CRO, management and study personnel, or top management. So, great. Shall we move to next one? And the best part of yeah, okay. See, what are the GLP?
Question number
Any lab should follow.
the question
3.
Please tell the question.
Question number, okay, question number 3. Oh, I'm not. No problem. But say set of rules any lab should follow, or it's a code of for non-clinical laboratory facility, or it's a code of conduct for PI on a non-GLP study. Okay, so what the question is, what is GLP? What are here the answer has to be two selection. I mean, it's like 1 or 2, 1 or 4 or 2 and 3 and like that. Difficult for the study personnel to ensure accountability, to ensure ability to reconstruct the study, and errors do not occur. So the question is, what are the 2 main goals of GLPs? The point of contact for a study is sponsor, top management, study director. Very easy to answer. The next question is reporting of QA, or to the sponsor, or to study director, or to PI. This is also a very simple question. Who has for the technical conduct of study, as well as interpretation, analysis, documentation, and represent a single point of study control. The principal investigator, the top facility management, the study director, quality assurance. You can choose multiple options here if you want to. This is a long question, but there are 2 questions out of the same data, same set of slowly. Select the statements which describe the quality control practice. I mean, whatever is there written here is a quality control. Histology technician checks the IDs on a block and slides to make sure that they match. Okay, so this is the missing tissues are reviewed by another research lab assistant during the trimming to verify. Third option, the final pathology report is reviewed by someone for data accuracy, SOPs, etc. Animal IDs are verified prior to trimming the research animal. Are periodically performed and report is issued to management. So periodic inspections are made and report is circulated to the study director and management. So there are 6 options. You select whatever activities, 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, or maybe all 6, which are QC practices. Here you are the quality assurance. This is the clue. And this is also the next question. Asked about QC practices. This next question, the same options I asked, what are QA practices? Can hold this slide for both the questions simultaneously. I'll just show you the next question. Here the C becomes A, everything is QC and QA. That is the only difference between the whatever, see, out of the 6, what are QC options and what are QA options? Slide for a minute. So shall we move to next question now? So what is the main function of quality assurance in GLP studies? To help the study personnel perform study work, or to catch every have the effectiveness of quality control program of a study. Here the option is only one to be given, not multiple. This is again a simple question. Next question is GCLP is more close to GCP principles. It is better described. It has both GCP and GLP in its core, or it is an independent guideline. This is a very simple question. What are the responsibilities of lab facility? GCLP are given to of lab facility GCLP are given to PI or head of the lab facility or study director or sponsor. This one is also very simple question. The following labs are microbiology, serology, hematology, blood banking, molecular biology, clinical molecular pathology, clinical biology, histopathology, cytology, or all of the above. This is again very simple question. This is now does not mean lab results are reliable, reproducible, or incidence of false negative and false positives are low, or all the data is computerized and or mutually accepted data. So what it does not mean should be selected option. Confidentiality of data in GCLP is derived from GCP, Drugs and Cosmetics Act and rules, or none of the above. This is again very simple to address. Audit certificate principles of GCP and GLP combined, GLP, the DC Act and rules, select which is most appropriate. Appointing appropriate personnel is responsibility of facility management, sponsor, or ethics committee. It's a very simple question. Bit tricky, little bit. And analytical project managers' responsibilities include allow minor changes in the processes. He has to ensure the complete documentation. He can access of data to sponsor. Select which one is most appropriate. False. Out of this study, personnel can change about. Okay, study personnel can change equipment not without sponsors approval. Cross validation with approval of APM and prior to sponsors, but before the sponsor and with the approval of PI. So which one is most appropriate? The terms of negative answer, which is false, I mean, which is not correct statement. You can select multiple also in this option. So QA can be done by APM, personnel, or PI, or by independent expert. Select which is most appropriate out of this. In those three circles, which individually means separate guidelines, then combined guidelines, and then global compliance lookout for all the concerned guidelines. So this visual image is much more than all the words which we have said since morning. So we have to have a global approach towards all the be it GM, good manufacturing, or good clinical, or good analytical, or good clinical laboratory practices, or microbiology practices, whatever is applicable, we have to comply to that. So thank you very much again. You can send it to Dr. Annabella and then I'll address through her.
There are no questions. We'll wind up.
At this juncture, I'd like to thank a few people, sir. Before-
No, one second, one second.
So
Any
thank
other
you very
questions
much
from
to all
anybody?
as well for
If anybody has questions, please unmute yourself and ask the question, please. Yours, Dr. Annabelle.
Okay, sir. Thank you. First of all, I should thank Dr. Prashant Bode. It's a very difficult, dry, complicated topic, and he dealt with it fantastically. In the morning, because I
yes, it
think
is.
he was thrown off for nearly half an hour, that kickstart didn't happen. But afternoon was crystal clear, morning also, but it is perhaps
Yeah.
for people who have done clinical research, but afternoon, I think every single person understood morning too. It was very nice. And I think morning came alive with with afternoon's explanations as well. I really must thank you, sir, for making that a simple one, understandable, and cohesive.
Happy saying, I don't know why it happened because I've done so many presentations on, especially on WebEx. WebEx is the most important, easy.
It's all right, sir. It's what happened afterwards which matters. So don't worry about that. I should thank the officials of the university, the vice chancellor, the registrar, our director, our own dear director, research, Dr. Satyamurthy, who was so patient and very sweetly arranged for so many things.
Incidences.
I should thank the AVIT personnel for having helped us with the connectivity and with the current display. Everything the AVIT personnel who helped. I'd like to thank the director international affairs for having given all the motivation for them to go through with this. I also would like to thank so many of you who spend so much time to sit in on a webinar, which is tough, and make a determination to learn what are GLP principles and GCLP principles, which are usually not the common topics which people deal with. I hope that you have grasped the importance of the regulatory matter which is there for every simple laboratory practice. Thank you so much for all of you.
And in case if you
And
require
thanks
my
also.
help in implementation, yeah, in case you
Yes,
require my
please.
help in, definitely happy to come over and do things. I think
Once
probably
COVID
next
is
month
over, sir.
will be
Some
open.
more
Yes.
nowadays doesn't happen. And yes, and
Once the things are a
finally,
little bit
I'd
open
like
up,
to
we can
thank
have a physical meeting as well.
Finally, I'd like to thank the IT personnel, the EDP, which made all the certificates. Even though there was a COVID situation and there were small minor corrections, ever so many, they patiently carried it out, and they have to do that again for GLP. So I thank Vijay Balan and his team who helped us to bring in the certification and who will be helping us further as well. Thank you all. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
And Dr. Satyamurthy, you want to add anything else?
No, no, bro. No. I want to
Thank you,
thank
sir.
Dr. Prashant Bode. Dr.
Yeah,
Prashant
yeah.
Bode.
My pleasure.
No. It's not an easy task to speak for 5-6 hours continuously. And with the same energy which you started at 10:45, you are continuing. And in fact, you have really a lot of information. And I hope we will be able to interact much more frequently and forth. In fact, as you know,
Surely.
our
It was
VMRF has
a
gone.
pleasure to.
Um,
Yes.
we have about 20 colleges and 3 medical colleges, dental college, pharmacy college, 2 engineering colleges, and nursing colleges, then homeopathy college. So there are many places where a lot of research is going on, a lot of laboratories are going on.
Yes.
There are medical hospitals come colleges. So there are many things are there. That is why some questions were taken a little longer. I thank you very much for your patient talk and taking all the questions and answering it extremely well. Your presentation is I mean, I really do not know how much time you would have spent on the presentation, preparing the presentation.
Takes
But
a lot
it's
of time.
beautiful, really
It
beautiful.
takes a lot of time,
It's
and
really,
basically, no, I
really
had
good.
to. No, see, and I anticipated issues. So my slides have to be a little bit detailed. Otherwise, normally we prepare very short slides. But then this time I prepared slides in detail. Intention, so that people don't miss out. Suppose if one word is gone in between, blanked out, then at least person has some text in front of him. So, but it takes a lot of time to prepare such presentation. But
It's
of course,
really,
it is required.
really good.
There is no way out.
That's why it's very informative, very informative. And also, I thank my colleagues, Mr. Syed, Director International, Mr. Lakshmi Mohan, who is Head of Placement Cell, and Jesram Samuel for, in fact, from morning onwards, he in fact started the WebEx before 10 o'clock itself, still online, and
Yeah.
I thank him. I thank him. In fact, he had some tough moments when you are not coming online, and I
Yeah.
can understand him. Thank you,
Everything was
thank you, Jesram
lot of
Samuel.
action.
I really owe you good thing, and of course, Dr. Annabelle is my own colleague, so I shouldn't go and thank her. Maybe it will become superfluous because she is the
Thank you,
person
sir.
she
No,
is,
no,
she is, she is the person behind identifying such a resource and conducting the program. And Dr. Vishnu, but in fact, I'm very happy that from morning 10:30 onwards he was there continuously. Even today, even now he is online, and I'm very happy about it. He is the medical research person.
so there are
Thank you very
several
much. Thank you.
heads of the institution also, sir.
Yes,
Present
yes, sir. Yes.
continuously.
All the heads of institutions I have been sending. I have been sending. Yeah, I have been sending. I have been sending multiple mails to the people, and the message has gone to. I'm very happy that 350, 360 plus participants have been participating in the morning. Of course, in the afternoon session also more than 275 plus persons are there. I can understand that uh, obviously they have classes to take, they have patients to attend. In spite of that, they could spend time. I mean, really, I mean that shows their interest in this particular topic, and I'm very happy that we could complete the thing in very well. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Dr. Annabelle. Thank you, Dr. Vishnu. But
Yes,
thank you,
my
Jesram.
pleasure, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you for
Lakshmi
inviting
Mohan.
me to be.
Thank you.
We'll have more opportunities. Thank you very much.
Sure. So we'll close the session.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Jesram, you may close it.
Okay.
Yeah.